if there is a Jesus, you're not Jesus. You are not Jesus. You are not at the center, and neither is anybody else. He is firstborn among the dead. And the rest of us, we're all lined up before the throne as sinners. The people that have tried to destroy me, the people that hate me, the people that I've wronged, the people that I've sinned against, all of us, just one congregation before him. My cherished and prized individuality, sometimes that cast me so low, worthless, disgusting, worse than everybody else, that sometimes self-reification and self-deification, I am so spectacular, I am so marvelous. All of it now just sort of eased into, I am as he made me. I am as he would have me. Now, I don't know that I might know, it'll be, for someone as you say, open, peripatetic, intellectually and capricious as I've sometimes been, perhaps it would seem audacious to claim that I belong to him, but that I surrender to you as my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, I serve you.
Yeah, well, it's something you want to do with care, that's for sure.
So surely. But to let you know that the ego's still in here, I may have given up wanting to be Jesus Christ, but I'm going to give as best a shot as I can give at being Paul. That's I'll come down from Jesus, but only so far. Oh no, sorry, Lord. Sorry, Lord. Paul's just a man like us. Paul's just a man like us. Acts is full of men like us. Ephesians, written by a man like us. Galatians, a man like us. And now, amidst these tectonic shifts and new and emerging kings and new paradigms and new language, here he is, Christ.
So let's
come and have a drink, please, because that was real life. As well, I ran with it because spontaneous. Don't stop. Don't stop film. Sorry.
Okay, so this, I want to take apart this idea. Two things here. I want to take apart this idea of the self.
Yes, sir.
And like the narcissistic self, let's say. And then I want to contrast that with this alternative self that's a consequence of the acceptance of something like voluntary self-sacrifice. And I kind of want to do that technically because I've been trying to work through the relationship between power and hedonism. So as far as I can tell, there's not much point in power apart from the sadism without hedonism, because power needs to serve desire, because why else have it? Okay, so then the question is, you might say, well, the power serves my desires. But then there's a problem there. Nietzsche pointed to this, by the way, back in the mid-1800s. He said, well, when you say my or when you say I, you're assuming some sort of a priori unity that's transcendent, that isn't self-evident, even though you think it is. So you might say, well, I want my desires to be requited. And that's a focus on me. But what you're doing is you're identifying the I or the me with the desire. And what that means inadvertently is that you're replacing I or me with the desire. And what that means is you're actually possessed by the desire.
Yeah.
And so what narcissism actually means, and I think this is true clinically, narcissism means subjugation to a series of possession by fragmented whim. And then people say, well, I'm getting what I want. It's like, there's no I there. You're a battlefield of whims. And then you might say, well, if your whims are being met successfully, why is that a problem? And it seems to me that the fundamental problem is it's actually self-defeating. Like, one of the things we know about psychopaths, for example, is...
Don't touch me when you say psychopaths. Some people think you think I'm one. I'm actually very compassionate.
No, I was thinking about you being one of the people who are talking about psychopaths. So, yeah, that's a very important distinction. So, psychopaths betray themselves as badly as they betray other people. So psychopaths are completely unable to learn from experience, which seems to mean that they don't give any consideration whatsoever to their future self. So they give no more consideration to their future self than they give to other people. And then you might say, well, what's the problem with that? And the problem is you gratify whim in the present at the cost of yourself and others in the future. And that's not a sustainable game. So now I've been trying, the postmodernists essentially presumed that the only uniting story was one of power.
Yes.
Okay, so then you might say, well, what's the alternative to that conceptualization that still allows for the possibility of union? Because you could have nihilism versus power, for example. Well, I think what the biblical stories are pointing to is an ethos of voluntary self-sacrifice, right? And that is actually the antithesis of power. And then you might say, well, there's a relationship between accepting that as a valid proposition and reconfiguring the notion of the self. Because when Tammy had Michaela, we took our daughter up to northern Saskatchewan when she was about a year old, and there's a bunch of old people there, and they're all just watching this baby like mad, like she was on fire, you know. They're all 65, 70, 75, and they're so thrilled that this little creature's around, and they're watching her intently. And Tammy said to me that it was such a relief to her not to be the center of attention, that something had become more important to her, and that calmed her down and it gave her purpose. And so then you might think the true self, rather than the hedonistic self-defeating self, which we axiomatically assume as the self, the true self is actually found in the consequences of voluntary self-sacrifice, because then you sacrifice, you get to be married. You sacrifice, you get to have friends. You sacrifice, you get to have colleagues and people who are voluntarily participating in your endeavors. You multiply your force. And then the self becomes like, it's the short-term psychopathic and manipulative whims that are sacrificed that you reflexively identify with the self. And what that's replaced with is harmony across all the levels of being simultaneously, from individual, like couple, family, town, society, state, and then all the way up Jacob's ladder, right? So, and that's based on, the argument would be, that's inevitably based on something like the acceptance of voluntary self-sacrifice as an existential necessity. And that seems to be, that's the pattern of Christ's life, clearly.
And obviously is partnered by the abortive sacrifice of Isaac in Genesis, which preempts and acts as a prologue to the ultimate sacrifice.
And I tried to take that apart, because that's a story, for example, that the atheists like Dawkins point to as indicative of the sadism of God. But I think what it means is that, of course, you offer your children to God because you can't protect them and you don't want them to be nihilistic. And so what you do is you say their service as tools in the hands of the divine takes priority over everything.
They're not yours. They're his.
That's right. Well, and remember, Abraham gets him back, right? And there's a lesson there. It's like, if you're willing to devote your children to what's highest, they return to you.
Also, faith demands of us that even though materially and actually you're in a moment where there's a knife above your child, you are, okay then, God, I mean, this doesn't look good from where I am, but I know that my perspective is just a set of interlocutors of fragmented desires, that transubstantiation is being taken anyway. You are taking the body, and the word you used was possessed by the false idols, by the desires continually. The transubstantiation of desire is continually taking place. I am occupied by desire. I locate myself here in this desire. My polarity is achieved by my desire, and inverted commas my, because who is the my if the false idol has now occupied me? If I'm possessed
that makes you a slave to the desire.
I am its parasite, so we have no choice. The only antidote, the only salve is him. He is the only salvation. It's only by dying on the cross with him that I can neutralize it, because otherwise I will be possessed again. Now, elsewhere in that, you talked about something that I picked up while reading that book you gave me, told me to read, Profane and the Sacred.
You read that. Great. That's Iliad.
The homogeneity, that you're not even living in a morass of neutralized space, but arbitrarily scattered fragments. And those desires that you just talked about, those desires of which you become the temporary host, you become puppeted by and parasited by, if you don't have within you the fortitude that, as just a sort of a set of urges and memories and projections, without the ideal, without the supreme ideal as maximum power, maximum sacrifice, maximum power, maximum service, not maximum power, maximum fulfillment of desire.
Right.
That is the narcissistic paradigm.